Have you ever been in a situation where two friends tell you about the same argument, but their stories are so different it sounds like they happened on different planets? Well, today we're tackling a massive version of that. The two completely different stories of China and Taiwan. Seriously, how is this possible? On one side, you have a story that says, we're one big family, we belong together. And on the other side, the story is, no, we're neighbors and we live in two totally separate houses. So let's dig into what's actually inside these two competing stories. Okay, first step, let's look at the story from the perspective of the People's Republic of China, the government on the mainland. For them, it's really an unfinished story. For Beijing, their entire story starts and ends with one single core idea. It's called the One China principle. And you have to understand, this isn't just a political preference or a talking point. This is written right into their actual law. For them, it is the absolute, non-negotiable bedrock of their nation. There is only one China, and Taiwan is a part of it. Full stop. So the way they frame this whole thing is as a family matter, an internal issue. In their telling, the Chinese Civil War from the 1940s just never officially came to an end. That makes Taiwan kind of like the final chapter of a book that's just been sitting on a shelf waiting for someone to write the ending. And in their story, there's only one possible conclusion: reunification. All right, now let's take a quick trip across the Taiwan Strait. Because the story you hear over there, well, it sounds like it comes from a completely different book altogether. Over in Taiwan, the government, whose official name is the Republic of China, tells a story that's all about sovereignty. The core idea is simple. We govern ourselves, we make our own laws, and we don't answer to anybody else. And this isn't some hidden academic theory. This quote is from the current president's very first major speech after taking office. He's putting it right out there. He's saying, look, our constitution is clear, the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China, neither one is boss of the other. So let's just pause and look at these two ideas side by side. One says, we belong to one China. The other says, we are not subordinate to each other. These two ideas just can't exist in the same space, right? So how did we get here? To figure that out, we have to put on our detective hats and dig into the past. All right, time to solve a historical puzzle. We've got to look at a few key moments that led to this whole situation. Our investigation really boils down to three key dates. First, way back in 1895, China's government loses a war and signs a treaty giving Taiwan to Japan forever. Then, let's jump forward 50 years to 1945. World War II ends, Japan loses, and troops from what was then the government of China, the Republic of China, arrive to accept Japan's surrender. But the real twist, the clue that changes everything, happens a few years later. This is the San Francisco Peace Treaty. This was supposed to be the final word, the big official legal document where Japan and nearly 50 other countries figured out all the details to officially end the war. But what it says, and even more importantly, what it doesn't say, is the biggest clue of all. And critically, neither the government in Beijing nor the one that had fled to Taiwan was actually there to sign it. And here it is. This is the absolute heart of the puzzle. The treaty is crystal clear on one point. Japan gives up any and all claim to Taiwan. Done. But then, there's a huge blank space. The treaty never ever says who Japan is giving Taiwan to. That one single omission left a giant legal question mark hanging in the air. And ever since then, both sides have built their entire national stories inside that question mark. So, you see, that historical question mark means this story is far from over. And in fact, even for people living in Taiwan, there are a bunch of different ideas about what the next chapter should be. Because Taiwan is a lively democracy, this is a topic of constant debate. The largest group by far wants to maintain the status quo, which is a fancy way of saying, let's just keep things exactly as they are. They see themselves as a self-governing democracy, and they'd like to keep it that way. But then you have smaller groups at either end. One group hopes for eventual unification with the mainland someday, and another group wants to go a step further and create a brand new country called the Republic of Taiwan. So our puzzle isn't just about the past. It's really all about the future, and who gets to decide what happens next. Is it Beijing, with its story of an unfinished civil war? Is it the government in Taipei, based on its reality of self-rule? Or is it the 23 million people who call Taiwan home? When history leaves a page completely blank, who gets to pick up the pen and write the answer? That's the real question at the heart of it all.